Hey there, everybody. Happy spring. I think we're officially into spring now. I'm not sure, but I know that the time changed. So I'm hoping that did not throw too many people off. My name is Wendy Hernandez. I am the host of Command the Courtroom. I'm a Phoenix family law attorney and also the creator of Command the Courtroom. Uh, Today, I have a guest for you, Daryl Moore. And let me put on my glasses. Daryl is a relationship separation specialist who helps people who were, quote, dumped in an intimate relationship to overcome emotional trauma quickly and get to living a life on their terms, which sounds awesome. He is the author of the book Abandoned and Shattered: Surviving and Thriving After a Breakup You Didn't Want. Daryl teaches from personal experience after a marriage of 26 years and subsequent divorce. Against his divorce, Daryl and family weathered a house fire, delaying the divorce. A year after the divorce, Daryl and his ex-wife lost their middle child to suicide. Since that time, Daryl has built a new intimate relationship and has created a strong bond with his remaining children, and he resides in Littleton, Colorado. Thank you, Daryl. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Wendy. I truly appreciate it. I can't tell you how long I've been looking forward to this with you. And I've followed your material for years. So I think people
Ah,
are pretty lucky to have you out there.
well,
Thank you.
thank you. I'm so excited to have you. And I appreciate that the material that you followed it, found it worthwhile. And like, I'm so thankful for people out in the world like you who are helping others go, process their trauma and get to a different place in life.
Well, and I fully agree with you there. It's a wonderful thing to be able to help and to watch people even like yourself doing the kind of work you do. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And so, I know a lot of your experiences, life experience, but, just for the people out there watching, like you do have some credentials, which I consider pretty impressive. You have a BS in practical psychology, an MBA, both from Regis University, and a Master of Science in Change Leadership. So I'm sure that like those credentials help inform the work that you do.
Well, they sure play in, but I really do think the crux of it, because there's a lot of people without the formal education who don't really want that. They want to see what people have been through, and I think I definitely haven't been through the worst of things, but I haven't had it the best either. So there's always somebody doing better or worse than yourself. So
For sure. That's something to remember. And you've been through a lot, which we're going to get to. I mean, I can't imagine losing a child. It's not something that I ever want to, I don't even like to think about that. And you've been through that.
it is much different because it creates a focus on the other children on even a bigger level, and then working, of course, hand in hand with my ex-wife to go through that. It creates a different element of challenge on top of a divorce. So
Absolutely. So I'm sure we'll explore that more, but let's start off about just overall mindset. And so for the person who, they've been dumped or they're going through a divorce, they found out their partner's having an affair, they're having difficulty with their children, maybe they have lost a child, child died. Um, they're having financial issues. If somebody is stuck in any one of these types of negative emotions while in the process of divorce, or if they completed a divorce, what's step one from your perspective?
I looked at this heavily because this topic, I think it's an overall mindset that you really have to bring to the table first. And it seems like it's very simple, but it is the only way that a person is going to be able to truly move on. And that's to have the mindset that no matter what it is, you'll figure it out. You got this, right? There's answers anywhere you look, like even things like this, videos that are up there, and it doesn't have to be paid material or paid people all the time. Can help sometimes, but just coming into it knowing that you can handle this, you can control this, you can learn what you need to.
Uh-oh. I lost Daryl. Daryl.
Still
Daryl.
here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I lost you for a second there. Can you hear me, Daryl?
I'm with you.
Okay, good, good. That's, so we were talking like for 10 or 15 minutes before the live stream started, no problem. And now there's technical issues, but that's, it happens. So, okay, so what I heard you say, if you can still hear me, and if you can't hear me, maybe you should go out and come back
Yeah.
in. No matter what happens, we got this. Are you there, Daryl? Are you there? Okay, for everybody who's watching, just bear with us while it looks like we're having technical difficulties. So Daryl may have to go back out and come in, and I'll just chit chat for a minute while we get settled. So I can tell you that um, I had a court hearing today, and the judge had technical difficulties that made our hearing run about a half hour behind. So technical difficulties happen, and just bear with us, you guys. Um, and one thing I can tell, there he is. He's back. Let's see if this works, guys. Thanks. Yes. Oh,
Breaks, now you're gone.
okay. Daryl. 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 Dang it. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if you all can see and hear me, but Daryl seems to be frozen. So let's get some feedback in the chat as to whether you can see and hear me.
Now I see myself. I'm back.
Okay, Daryl. All right. Can you hear me now, Daryl?
I can hear you, Wendy. Are you there?
Okay. I'm here. Okay, so let's keep our fingers crossed that this
Maybe a lot of people are on tonight.
sticks. It's so weird. I don't know what's going on, but sometimes it does happen. It's okay. So,
Okay.
okay, let's try it again. So, Daryl, what you were saying is that number one is that people have to know that they got this. That's step one from your perspective.
It really is, because anything else is going to lead to doubt and going to put you into a place that is not a productive focus. So, really understanding right up front that the answers are there is kind of a key up front to your overall thinking.
Okay, got it. So, I want to use this as an opportunity to quote one of my favorite people that I follow, Marie Forleo, and she says
Yeah, yeah.
everything is figure outable, right?
She's terrific, and that book, in her book, is that title.
That's right.
Everything is figure outable, and
That's
and I really believe it is. And if you're committed to that from the start as a mindset, it's going to make everything else so much easier mentally going forward.
okay. And what if somebody is having those doubts though that creep in and they think, "Oh my God, but this is such a huge issue," or "Oh my God, where am I going to come up with the money to get an attorney?" I mean, when these doubts creep in, what do you
Well,
suggest?
well, I would tell you right off the bat, if you're living in any kind of doubt or negative emotion, it's because you're either in the past or you're in the future. And I was going to speak to fear in a little while, because I know a lot of people have fear, uncertainty, and fear is really anxiety and uncertainty coupling up, right?
Got it.
So
Yes.
if you're living in the future and that future hasn't even happened yet, and you're more concerned about attorney fees and all these other things, you're not controlling what's in the moment to go control. So it's best to kind of step back and ask yourself, and I'm dipping forward a little bit, but ask yourself, what can I truly control at this moment? What
Got
can
it.
I do?
Got
and
it.
and that's a huge one you can do, or just simply get on to an action plan. It might be imperfect actions, but it's actions. And when you're taking action, you don't have time to wallow too long when you're doing things heading forward.
All right. So I got that. So excellent. So how does taking action kind of parlay into when somebody is feeling overwhelmed? Because, I can tell you as a family law attorney, I get overwhelmed. Like I don't show it. Like I kind of internalize it, but I get overwhelmed. But I can't imagine what my clients go through when it's their case, how overwhelmed they must feel. So what are your thoughts on overwhelm?
Well, and the overwhelm stage is part, especially of the beginning, where I call it like a reaction or a shattering type of process that happens. And overwhelm falls within that. And again, it's because we're taking on everything at one time. And anytime you're taking on and going down that waterfall that just keeps adding negative emotions and asking yourself questions that are not going to lead to great answers, you're going to feel that sense of overwhelm. And so I think when you're heading into overwhelm, and I did put some notes here to make sure I'm giving your people the best of the best that I have.
Yes.
But the overwhelm, that shattering reaction stage, really is the longest stage to overcome. All those negative emotions are in that same stage, and it's due to cortisol, stress hormones going through your body because of that focal point. And stress hormones can kind of eat you alive because they impact your decision making, the quality of your decisions, the speed of your decisions, the number of solutions you come up with. And all of that happens when you get into that overwhelm. So it's really, really important to kind of step back and make sure that you're handling what's in front of you that's urgent to handle. And I know that seems like a huge task when you're in the middle of a divorce, and especially when you get dumped and you have all the rejection and all the different anger and pieces that come into that from that side. But that's not to discount the people filing. I'm with a girlfriend, and she actually filed the divorce with her ex-husband, and I was the one who received the news on my side. And it's never easy, because I think people on the receiving end, like myself, feel that we have it so much harder than the other person, but they're going through guilt. You have a number of things coming up from that. And I think it's just objectivity in the beginning, and really breathing. Just stop and just take 6 to 10 deep breaths, and put yourself in control. What can I control in this moment? And I really believe that's it. You got to step back from the issue and not own the issue internally. It's like a house guest that won't leave, right?
Yes.
And that's kind of what it feels like. You have a house guest you want out, but they're sticking around, and you're getting more and more angry. Well, you just got to step and treat it as something separate from your normal life and your normal emotions.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And I think, the breathing is such a basic thing,
Oh yeah, yeah. It breathing
but it
is
does wonder.
basic,
I
yeah.
was like, I was just it's that conscious breathing. I use it a lot. Like my daughter's upset, and I just sit with her and say, let's breathe. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And just doing that a few times, I think calms the nervous system.
Well, and also you can give yourself a message why you're doing the in and out. So you can tell
Mhm.
yourself calm or peace or something like that as you breathe in. And then when you breathe out, you say stress or anger, and kind of let it go and actually visualize it through, seeing those emotions coming in positively and out negatively. And I think it really helps out. I think it's a very basic step in there. And we'll be going over some additional tools to use, like changing physiology, just getting out for a quick walk. You'd be amazed at going around the block what it does for you if you're stuck. So we'll
Totally.
go into some of those coming up in more detail. But I do have I do remember like it was yesterday. My divorce was 7 years ago, and Dylan's suicide was 6 years ago. So I've had a little time since that time to really put together a better tool chest of working with these type of issues. But I remember the day the doorbell rang, and two guys showed up, process servers, right? You know what's coming next,
Yeah.
and presented me the papers. I looked at them. It said dissolution of marriage. I was shocked. I was angry. My body, it was like my heart skipped a beat, and I didn't know what to do. I was like thinking every fear in the world of oh, wow, what am I going to do? Am I going to be able to hold on to my children in custody? Am I going to be able to afford this? Are they going to give her 90% of my income and I'm going to have to get 5 roommates to live with to make this all go? And it's a very frightening feeling. And I can remember that like it was yesterday, even though it was 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And boy, I feel for your viewers here. I feel for all you guys because it is something that's very real in the moment. And you say, well, it's just so easy to step back and take a breath. I had to learn to do that over time. You realize that, is this even going to matter 10 years from now? And it's probably not. And you got to constantly ask yourself that, is this going to matter down the road? And no, you're going to be in a better situation because there was obviously some issues within it, whether we choose to see them or not. But it makes for a difficult path when these emotions keep creeping up on you time and time again. So you have to find a pattern break to all of that to move forward.
Okay. And do you have suggestions in terms of pattern break?
Well, I think some of them, like I was talking about, like just if you're stuck into a set of emotions, walk around the block. That's an easy thing to do. It doesn't take much. If you don't even have that capacity, jump up and down in place. Run in place or jump up and down in place for 2 minutes. Just keep going, and the chemicals in your body will change. You'll start getting a launch of endorphins and serotonin, dopamine in the brain, and it gives you a whole different feeling. And as you know, your thoughts lead to your feelings, which lead to your action behaviors. And so it's really good to break it as quick as you can. And another one that I teach people is to really compartmentalize, to look at what is important, what's important to be able to move to that next step. So what in the moment do you have? If you have your children there, you don't want to be in your negative emotions and be disengaged and somewhere else the whole time when you have your kids there. So
Yes.
just remember, you'll get a quiet time coming up that you can mourn and do your thing. But if you compartmentalize, one thing that I created all the way back, I used to hear from my grandfather, and I was in the military, I was in the Navy. And one thing I learned way back then is he was a captain of a research ship, and he always had things coming up for him. And he used to say, you can only live in your worry and fear and stuff for 5 minutes, and then it's got to go. So I created something I called the 5-minute rule. And I really give myself 5 minutes to be a victim and to do that. And I aim to shorten it all the time. So it's a constant improvement that I try to do. But give yourself 5 minutes, because if you start a day in a negative way, it just keeps building and building and building. And next thing you know, you have a horrible day or a horrible week, month, 6 months, year.
Exactly.
So I think that's a real big one right there.
I love that idea of giving yourself permission to be a wreck for 5 minutes, or mourn or grieve or whatever, because I know when in my life, when I have experienced pain or grief and I fight against it, it's like it doesn't go away. It doesn't move through me. I don't process it.
Very valid point too, Wendy, because any emotion you try to suppress, you live in.
Yeah.
And that's a huge one. And I did not even have that on the list for tonight. But let your emotions, I'm not saying let them really kill you, but let them pass through you, and just kind of be aware, be an outside observer and go, okay, this negative emotion's coming through. Let it go through like it's a freeway, and it's going to take its time, or it's going to go through kind of quick. But that's a great idea on your part. Thank you for contributing that, by the way.
Oh, well, you triggered it by the 5-minute rule. So you're the one that it was your idea. Thank you.
Yeah, it's always good to build on them. So
tell me about also creating gaps between what you're thinking and then your reactions. Can you talk about that?
Oh, sure, definitely. And I think one big area is if you have an ex and you guys aren't like a village, you're not able to take care of the kids on an ongoing basis because there's too much fighting going on and you're still emotionally very upset about the divorce and everything. I think one huge thing is just to step back and just ask yourself one simple question. What do I want out of this interaction? What is my final goal for this interaction? So if you're going to communicate and your ex sends you an email, and of course they're going to be pushing your buttons, right? They're going to say things to get your reaction, see what you do. So just sit down with a pad of paper up front. Don't feel you need to react right away on everything. Or if you're in a conversation and you just can't get away from it like you can with an email, just tell the person, you know what, I'm kind of in a place where I want to consider my answer for a minute on this. I want to take my time and do that, because when we do that, that's how we lose our kids, our connection with our children. That's how we lose our connection with our spouse, is we real quickly bite back and do that. So if you need to, pad of paper. We'll return to this in 2 hours to discuss this. Whatever you would like to lay as a ground rule. But it's pretty easy to do. I think we feel like we just need to spew it out right there and then every time. And that's not the case at all.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great suggestion. I'm going to use that for sure.
Yeah, I love to when I can. I'm not saying I'm perfect on any level, but I'll tell you, I have really worked to master these things that I talked to you about.
Yeah, so thank you for that. Something intriguing that you mentioned off camera, speaking of pad and paper, is this idea of an inspiration notebook.
They actually, it worked really well for me. And I'm not going to tell everybody out there that everything I'm saying here today will work for you in the way that it did for me. But when I was going through my lows, I'm talking after the announcement of the divorce, I was doing rum and cokes every night to numb myself, just to get to a workable point to say, screw it, I'm done. I don't want to deal with this. And it wasn't the right way to handle it, really. And then one night I'm sitting at my desk in my office and I'm looking over, and there's a bottle of rum and there's empty spiral notebooks. And I looked over at the notebooks and I looked at the rum, then I looked at the notebooks and I said, I'm just going to start writing down every inspiring thought that I have, because they might be few and far between right now with all the negative emotions, but there's thoughts that come up. A beach in Maui with the breezes blowing on you. It can be anything. The smile of your children, the way they looked at you that day. It can be anything. And I did 13 notebooks that were front and back page.
Wow.
Single spaced all the way through with all inspiring thought. And then anytime I was down and out, I started typing those notebooks into the computer to re-embed all of those emotions.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a huge tool for me, because it reminded me that maybe not everything is so bad. Maybe there's some positive stuff coming up.
That's right. That's right.
So that's what I used. And then another one for the fear, because a lot of people are going to have fear. They're uncertain because you have a perception about a future that has not happened yet. That's usually the reason you're going through fear.
That's right.
With fear, I kind of took a stance on something I learned years ago from Dale Carnegie. And it was a book called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And I did a deeper play on kind of an exercise that they had there. But it's to list your fear. So write them down, go through each fear and give it a page of paper front and back. And on the front side of the paper, just write down everything that would be the worst that could humanly happen if that fear happened. If you went to court and you lost custody, or you got less custody than you wanted, or you're paying more in child support, whatever it might be, write them down, each fear, and go through that. Make it as dark and horrible as you can. And you could say, well, why do I want to go to dark emotions when I've already been there? Because it gives you a desensitivity to that fear. It gives you a chance to kind of oh, this is it on
Hmm.
one piece of paper. This is it. This is the worst that can happen to me. Great. And on the other side, it's super simple. You just start writing down things that will make it better than it is on the other side of the page. That's
Got
it.
it.
And then you
Yep.
pick something that looks like the least sucky avenue you can take,
Mm.
and you go. And you
Yep.
just keep doing it and you keep doing it.
I think
So
that's
that's what I
awesome.
have on that. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's a new idea. I've never heard anybody, talk about using the dark thoughts in that way. But I agree, and I think to a certain extent, as a lawyer, I do that, and probably doctors do that because you always give the worst case scenario to the
Yeah.
clients, right?
You have to. Yeah.
But I've never suggested that they use it in that way. But I'm going to start. So that's thank you for that.
Yeah. Anything that will help. I try to pack a lot into a short time. So sorry
Yeah.
to blitz you with everything, but
No, no,
it's
no,
this is
no.
all for you guys. This is all for the
Thanks.
viewers here.
Thank you. I
So
appreciate that. So
sure.
awesome. Okay, so let's talk about um, separating identity. So I know in the past when I was involved in a relationship with somebody for several years, and I was not married, but I felt like they were part of me and I was part of them. And when the relationship ended, I didn't know who I was outside of
Yeah.
them. And so, can you speak to that? For people who are going through a relationship separation or divorce, like they don't know how to be outside of that other person.
Well, and I fully agree with you. And I think, like you said, with your partner at that time, um, any significant relationship, you're going to get intertangled and intertwined, and you're going to be giving and taking at different periods of time, which create it's kind of like a rope that you have to unwind, like a cable or a rope, and you're just having to pull yourself from them. And people go, well, how do I do that after? Like I was married 26 years, right?
Wow.
And my girlfriend was married 25 years. So we both had a lot of that we had to do, and you have different roles within that. And so sometimes your own preferences, your dreams, your values get shoved aside for the other person. And you could be on here going, not sometimes, like all the time. You could have a relationship that was 90% take from them and 10% give, and you were doing all of this, and then you're even more heavily invested into that. So we can really get lost into the push and pull of a relationship and that identity because your partner might have fulfilled something very important within that relationship. Like they might have done the finances where you were off doing the career work and doing that. So, or taking care of the household when you're traveling and doing things for work, like I ran into quite a bit in the past.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that is the case with my ex-wife. She's a numbers person. She does accounting related contract stuff for Ball Aerospace. Very much a numbers person, and I wasn't as much. I made a lot of money and did what I needed to do at that time, but I didn't have the finances down. So that was a piece of me that was kind of missing when I came out of a marriage.
Mhm.
So we'll look at that in a self-sufficiency type of thing in a few minutes, but you really have to be able to get it separated and really even set up your own environment. Like your ex or soon to be ex might be separate from you now. Well, I don't care if you have a crappy apartment, what you have. And Marie Forleo even mentions this. She said she had a one bedroom studio, terrible place in New York, but she'd set flowers out on the table to make it beautiful and made it her own and doing all of that. And that's one thing that you can really do because you'll start seeing your preferences come out and that identity splits up a little bit there. But I do something called a do not fit list,
Aha.
and it's a little more in depth than just being mad at your ex. Okay,
Okay.
you just sit down and pad of paper too. I always say pads of paper and pens. Your favorite writing pens are your best friends. Think it out on paper, right? Do this,
Yeah.
but I did something called a do not fit list, and this is everything that was not a fit for you in that marriage or that relationship when you broke up.
Hmm.
So you just come up with every single thing that was against your values, that you gave on, that didn't feel right. You never got to see your friends, but he went out with his, or vice versa. But come up with everything that you can think of that wasn't quite right in your relationship before for the type of person you are. And that'll give you a pretty good indication of what you should be taking forward, because that should be in your new set of rules when you enter another relationship, or even with the way people treat you on a daily basis. So coming up with a do not fit list is, I think, huge, because you can really begin to see the differences of them versus you.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, I'm speaking from personal experience. When I was in a relationship with somebody I was in love with, I feel like I started to sacrifice a lot of myself, and I didn't even know it because I was so worried about making that other person happy. And
Yes.
it wasn't until after the relationship was over and I was thinking, well, I didn't really even like to do blah, blah, blah,
Right.
So, but the do not fit list would have been a great tool.
Well, it gives you a visual way of just kind of seeing it right out in front of you.
Yeah.
And it is kind of a hard thing, because I'm going to tell you that it doesn't let you off the hook, but I can tell you that there's been study after study about dopamine and serotonin attached to a relationship, whether the relationship was a perfect fit for how long it lasted in your mind, or if it were 90% crappy, 10% good, like we were talking about. And what they found is you get dopamine and serotonin tied to that relationship. So you will often do anything you can for your partner, like you did, right, to make them happy and everything within it, because you have that connection that's a chemical type of connection. It does go away over time, but it takes a little practice to get rid of the chemical addiction part of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I would think that people, if they kind of look at, the do not fit list, and then based on that think to themselves, well, I'm going to try this new thing, that could be an adventure or exciting or produce new types of chemicals or rebuild
Yes.
networks or something like that. I don't know.
And yeah, and it's huge. It really is. And getting all of those triggers of that other person out of your life.
Totally.
Anything visual out of your environment. Don't go to the same restaurants you went to together. Find new ones, like you were talking about. Hey, take some new things out in the world. Well, do
Yeah,
that with the places you go. You don't have to go to the same restaurant and feel like crap every time you go there because you're exiting there anymore, right?
exactly.
Pictures, communications, all of that. Triggers are really important because they can tie you up for hours on something you don't want to be involved in emotionally.
That's right. That's right. This whole conversation reminds me of that movie. This part of the conversation, Runaway Bride with Julia
Oh,
Roberts. It
yeah,
was from the 90s. Did you see that?
I did. Yeah. It made me feel really bad for the other guy. I think it was Richard Gere
Yeah.
was the other guy on there, but yeah, kind of. But it does embed a lot of patterns in you. And I see a
Mhm.
lot of divorce forums where it's a lot more than women than men speaking out about it.
Mhm.
But they say
Mm.
there are no good guys left out there.
Yeah.
There's, and it's a belief system. I mean, if you saw the ease that I met the people in my life, the women I've had relationships with, without online dating and without all of that, I think you just have to have an energy going forward that, hey, I'm just going to make life good. I'm gonna love myself. I made this goal for myself that I would be happier in my own company than anywhere else,
That's right.
and then when you meet somebody, it's not to fill your needs, it's to get somebody who aligns with you, that you can be even more amplified on a better level with. And if you start looking at that instead of desperation, it really helps even through the emotions. You're not
That's
desperate, you just think you are.
that's right. That's such great intelligence, and just, weaving in my experience, my own personal experience. I think for a long time I thought I am worthless, nobody wants me, blah, blah. I mean, I had these thoughts and they were recurring thoughts. I have memories now, like hiking and just thinking this stuff over and over in my head. And at some point it shifted for me and I decided I don't need somebody I'm going to travel the world with or without
Good for
somebody. And,
you. Good
you
for
know,
you. Yeah.
and I think that was the shift. So you bring up a really valid point, but that awareness that you're giving yourself those messages is important.
Well, I really do feel that we need to make ourselves our best connection. You know, if you're stepping into negative emotions and all you're thinking about is I'm lonely and I need to go get somebody else in my life, well, maybe it's you time for a little while to sort some stuff out, you know? And I
Right.
did that. I took 6 months and I said, I'm not getting involved with anything else. I'm going to sit down and process things that have happened with me and look at what I really need to improve for myself. And that
Gosh.
difference gives you a gap too. And you're so much better going into maybe a future relationship if you can get to know yourself a little bit. So
Exactly. I mean, you're such a wonderful resource. And, when I went through all this stuff, it was 20 plus years ago, and none of this was available. Like, there was no YouTube there, and people would just really take to heart, what you're saying, Daryl. I mean, I think that they would process through things with more ease. I'm not saying it's going to be easy,
no,
but
no. I think that would be a real disservice on my part to tell all you guys that this is an easy thing. It's not easy. It might be simple. It might be simple to turn to the tools and to do that. But anything with the heart and anything with emotion and nervous system is not going to be the easiest thing, but it is possible to really flatten that timeline out and to come out the other side with a lot more of you intact. Not
that's
your
right.
ex and what you're mad about, but with you.
That's
But it,
right.
it does take internal work to do this. There's no simple answers on everything. You got to do
No,
the work.
no, that's right. Exactly. So, hi, Joni. I haven't seen you in a while, so she's giving you prayer hands. Joni is a long time listener, and I got to give
Well,
a shout,
I'm
give a shout.
giving Joni her hands as well.
And I want to shout out to Tenacious Warrior. She's my right hand lady and always
Oh,
helping
great.
me,
Thank you.
and summarizes things that you're saying and quotes and stuff. So
I
thank you,
like that.
Tenacious. Yeah, she's great. So Tenacious Warrior, thank you. All right. So let's say somebody has moved, through the initial stage of shock and overwhelm, and they're moving towards acceptance. Then, what do you think is the next phase? Where do people need to look?
Well, I think you've already kind of understood where the identity is separated a little bit. You have some ideas of what's you versus them. The reality has already hit you really hard that the relationship is over. So I think first thing you'll see is that the edges of these emotions aren't so sharp. So they kind of dull down a little bit and it doesn't hit you in the same way that it used to. And you're discovering this is your new reality. This is what you're pulling forward. This is what you're having to go through. And I got to tell you, and this kind of plays into your question here a little bit, but my ex, I really had to get out from her to be able to do this work because after our divorce was final, we were still in the same house for another 2 months
Oh, wow.
before we sold the house. I had to wait in the state of Colorado. You cannot spend your money and finance anything until the divorce is final. So I
Wow.
went the day of our divorce and put a contract down on a new house to be built. But I
Oh,
had
wow.
time before I got into an apartment and waited for the house to be built. And it really being out on your own, you might see it as, gosh, I'm lonely, or the kids aren't here. I don't hear pitter patter running everywhere. Um, but it really gives you some prime time to sit down and think. And so many people are scared to think. And what those thoughts can really revolve around is not repeating past mistakes, of course, because you've already kind of dealt with some of that and understand it, but also a better vision for where you want to head. I did something that was a little different than most people. And I went to all of my best friends who were very honest with me. And I did an anonymous survey of all my good qualities and all of my bad. And when I got the answers back from my friends, they did not put their names on them got them back and they were all identical. So I knew what my future needed to be about
Oh my
and
God.
going forward. Because, boy, if you're getting 6 people saying, boom, this is a quality of yours, and it kind of hit me. It's a little humbling because you don't want to hear it all the time. But that was kind of my future going forward, as I knew I didn't want to carry those into my next relationship down the road or with my kids or with anything
Right.
else. So I
That's
think really when you get to an adapting stage, you're not feeling that sharpness anymore, but you really got to look at it as a chance to invest in the future you do want to head toward. What types of things do you really enjoy in your life, right? Another thing that kind of hit me in this stage, which is very, very helpful, and I know people who internalize this are really going to carry a lot from it. But I was doing work around. Have you heard around Pareto's principle?
I have, but I can't remember what it is.
So basically, 20% of anything equals 80% of results in your life or that
Yes.
type of thing. So really simplifying your life. Well, one of the questions I heard on a podcast was, I believe it was from a gentleman named Tim Ferriss, and he had said, who are the 20% of the people in your life who cause you 80% of your stress, pain, and poison? And then you make a list of those people. And
Mm-hmm.
then he said, your whole job is to either eliminate them out of your life or to minimize the amount of time that you have to be around them in case they're family or something like that. And that was huge for me because all of a sudden, all these people who would go, oh, you can't do that. Oh, what do you mean you're divorcing Desiree? Why aren't you, things that I couldn't even control at that time. But all these people that nag in your ear about stuff and they're not really supportive friends or family members. I think it's really important to get them out of your emotions now, if you could do it. It's a
Totally.
great place to do it going forward.
Totally. So Grace Lee is saying 20% of anything in your life equals 80% of your outcome in life. So
Right, on any given topic. Yeah.
that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that, Daryl. Uh,
Yeah. And one more thing, and I'm sorry to cut you off, Wendy, on
no, no,
that
no, no,
matter.
no. I think that's
Um,
great, and I think that's a good point. And don't forget, but I think it's important for people to take an inventory of maybe those people in their lives who aren't as supportive as they would like them to be.
Well, and the question not only applies to the people in your life, it applies to the work you do. It applies to the things you do at home, what you do with your kid, with your kids. What is the 20% of things that are going to lead to 80% of your connection with your children? And
Yeah,
focus on those 20%
that's
instead of
right.
doing 80 that's only giving you 20 and being sacrificed all over the place and blend it out. You want to be powerful in the different areas. And I think moving forward in your life, an 80-20 assessment in every area of your life can really help you out.
Excellent. Definitely. I feel like we all need signs above our computer that says the Pareto principle so we can remember that, right?
It's an economic principle, but it really does tie into the things in life if you look at it. And it's done wonderful things for me. And I hope all you viewers will use that in your way as well. And there's one more thing that I do, and then I'll kind of wrap up with you and your direction and your
Okay.
questions. But
All right. Awesome.
I created something called a bubble of self-sufficiency.
Yes.
It's like a good analogy for that would be like creating a country of your own. What do you need to go out there and do to make your country run? You're
Uh,
your country, right? You need economics, right? You need relationship related stuff. You need some rules in life to follow, some things like that. And I think that's huge. And then that will also give you a chance to do a skill assessment and really look at what skills do I need that I'm lacking from my divorce or
mhm.
that they might have done in the other part of that and carrying that forward. And I put it all into something I called my life doctrine. It's a
Okay.
62-page 3-ring notebook with all my values and how I make decisions and what I believe in life toward other people, toward myself, my goals, my visions, where I want to go in life. And just, it's like an operating manual for my life. And it takes a lot of work. I'm telling you, you're not going to be done in a month. But if your
Okay.
life is important to you going forward, make it your life, make it your direction, and think of what a magical life is to you and define it and put it down and take weekends away to yourself at a resort. I'll go to a beach and sit. I'll go to Arizona sometimes in your neck of the woods, and I'll just take weekends to think about stuff. And every year I take a week at the ocean by myself, and I take a week in the mountains by myself. It's okay to do all of that, but start putting your life together in your way. That's all I would tell
Yeah.
everybody. And there's never enough time in a day, but these are some things I thought could be
Right.
powerful.
Oh, totally powerful. So, and so Daryl, last question, and I know that you could go on for hours, and we're going to share with people how they can get more of you, but is there a point, a letting go point, and a place where people can start to look towards a brighter future?
Well, I think you definitely you have to deal with the stuff that's in front of you first.
Okay.
I think the quicker you make that commitment, to I can handle whatever comes my way, like we talked about, you do these tactical things that I've offered in this interview, and you put that stuff together, you do the inner work. The quicker you sit down and confront these things and do these things and come up with a newer vision for your future, it's going to pull you out of a lot of that crap that you've been stuck in.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the brightness comes.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that is really helpful for finding the bright spot is just getting out and opening doors up, anywhere.
Hmm.
Just anything that's along that path that you feel good about. Your feelings will tell you everything.
Yes.
They really will. I mean, your thoughts will convert to feelings, but you really can't monitor your thoughts all the time. I know people tell you you can, but that's, could be 100,000 thoughts in a day. But you'll always know where you're at by the way you feel.
Yeah, that's right. And if
So
so, yeah. So use your feelings as guiding, as kind of a guiding, like a signpost, like a stoplight or something. I don't know if it's a stoplight. I don't know if that's the right analogy, but you can use your
no, I think it's
feelings.
great. No,
Yeah.
it's great if your feelings are saying yield and your intuition is telling you to yield on this and not follow a certain, learn to really trust yourself. You know internally how you feel, and
Yeah.
make decisions that kind of make sense going forward for you, based on those feelings. But that doesn't mean don't program in better thinking and use some affirmations. Make your house positive. I did that with my new build right after the divorce. I put hundreds of motivational quotes everywhere. You would have thought that I was just Tony Robbins up on stage with how much stuff I had in my house. And I had pictures of my kids and all power. No pictures of my ex, nothing personal,
Yeah.
but pictures of the kids, smiles on people's faces, motivational quotes, and just keep yourself in that, and you'll notice the bright spots come more often.
That's
They
right.
really do.
That's
And
right.
even a warm cup of coffee in your hands will, or a cup of tea if you're a tea person, will do amazing things if you just sit there. And like I was saying earlier, the other piece of that is get out of the future and get out of the past. There's a
That's
guy
right.
named John Kabat-Zinn, and he
Yeah.
teaches something called mindfulness.
Yeah.
I recommend everybody pick up some materials on mindfulness and stay in your current moment, because time's tricky. Time's not real. Time's not real. You only have now.
That's right. And you brought up a good point. This past year has been difficult for a lot of people, with the coronavirus and just being confined at home for a lot of us, or being away from people we love. And I know that for me personally, like I used to just really look forward to the big stuff, like the trip, the yearly family vacation
Yeah.
or the big party. Like I turned 50 last year. We were planning a big bash that didn't
Oh,
happen, but you know what it is interesting, Daryl, is that because we've been confined to home, now I am looking forward to and enjoying that cup of coffee, which I never sat and enjoyed before. And I'm like, okay, what mug am I going to
yes.
pick today? And I love my coffee and I'm slowing down to be in the moment. Doesn't mean I still don't freak out over the past or the future, but
Well, you kind of have a job that lends to that a little bit.
yeah.
But yeah, it's a great thing that you're doing that. This is a real good time for self care,
Yeah.
when you get to that stage, and just whatever you do, you exercise, you rest better, get your manicures. You can only give other people what you have. So you want to take time for self care, your meditation, your reading music, quieting the heart down, the mind down a little bit, and just relaxing through that. And again, we talked about it earlier, but surrendering to what you can't control and really getting a grasp on what you can.
That's right.
That's huge. And that central question is, what can I do in this moment that I have full control over?
Yeah.
And
That's
then
right.
surrender the rest, because and you're going to see bright spots coming up more and more. And then I had one final mention in there that we hadn't covered somewhere else.
Yes.
And there's a guy named Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't
Oh,
know if you
yes.
know Joe's work.
I love
Um,
Joe. Love Joe
he's
Dispenza.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need him on your show. We need to talk to him about that and get him on your show.
I want him on my
But
show.
it's he wrote a book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
Mhm.
And you want to talk about breaking down mind science into quantum reality, the quantum field, and doing things through meditation. And he says we only have conscious movement of about 5% of our life.
Mhm.
95% is subconscious patterns and behaviors that we do that are addicted to certain emotions that we carry.
Yeah.
So I recommend people pick up a copy of that book, and it will help me even further than what we're talking about too.
Totally. I love Joe Dispenza. And, my favorite book of his is Becoming Supernatural. Have you read that
That's a
one, Daryl?
newer one. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, such a good
It
book.
moves you.
It
Yeah.
totally. Yeah. It's a
But
great.
yeah, that's what I was going to say with him is he really does break down the science of all of this, and has done a ton, thousands and thousands of heart scans
Mhm.
combined with brain scans
Yeah.
after meditating pre and post.
Yeah.
If you're a science person and you really need it proved to you first, he's your guy, because then he can tell you what to do to take it to the
That's
next
right.
level. So I'm in
That's
agreement with you.
he's a doctor, he's a scientist, so he can, this isn't just like woo-woo stuff. He
Mhm.
relates it to the actual physical science, and like you said, they have the heart monitors, and they show you how it's scientific. So I agree with you. But speaking of which, books, you have a book, so tell us about your book and how people can find it, Daryl.
Oh, definitely. Thank you so much for allowing me that.
Absolutely.
The book is called Abandoned and Shattered, Surviving and Thriving After a Breakup You Didn't Want. You can get it on Amazon, or you can get it on my website at afterrelationship.com. And then I have other useful tools in that website, afterrelationship.com. I have 15 best tips for getting over a breakup you didn't want. So they can go in there, opt in with an email, and then I'll let them know about future things coming out if they stay opted in. And I have some blog posts in there that might be of use for people to go a little bit further. But thank you. Yeah, this is terrific. And I love that we met through the Global Divorce Summit
Yes.
recently. So it's always nice to find people who love their field. And I truly appreciate you, Wendy. I do.
Well, you're doing great work in the world, Daryl, and I appreciate you helping people. And God, I wish that like we had YouTube 20 years ago, because I could have used you. I could tell you, I think you would have helped fast forward my recovery from a heartbreak, by years because I was heartbroken for a good couple years. I'll tell you that. It was one of the hardest things I ever went through. And you are helping people, with things like you said, they don't even have to leave the house to do. So thank you for that. And thank you for sharing your knowledge and your tools.
Yeah, and thank you for putting this out to the world. And maybe in another dream somewhere, I dreamed of us matching up to do something together with this, and I
I'm,
have followed you because you've been out there for a while doing this type of work. So thank you so much, and I
oh,
look forward to next time, whatever we can do.
I look forward to it too, Daryl. Thank you for your time. And so you guys check Daryl out. Abandoned and Shattered is his book. You can get it on Amazon. Opt in at afterrelationship.com. He has
Correct.
that freebie that he'll give to you, and he'll give you information about his upcoming offers and whatever the other work and interviews that he's doing is. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So thank you for that. And I want to give a shout out to Joni Ricketts. She did a super sticker, so that's awesome. And I'm not
Oh,
even.
thank you, Joni.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joni, for being a part of this. And I also want to shout out to Ernie Camp. Ernie Camp has been a friend of mine since I was, I don't know, a little kid, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, and he's on this
Wow.
live stream. So Ernie, I love you, brother.
Thanks,
Thanks for
Ernie.
thanks for watching. And
Yeah.
so it's like I feel great that Ernie's on here. And so as always, thank you to everybody who's watching. I will be back next week. So next week we have a triple stream, triple threat
Wow.
with Alex, the proper person, and Dwayne, Dad surviving divorce. We're going to be three of us on a stream. I don't know how it's going to work, but Alex is organizing it. So join us then. And until then, keep on trucking, you guys. And remember to get out there and command the courtroom. We'll see you soon. And give this a thumbs up if you like it, by the way, and hit subscribe if you're not subscribed. Thank you, Daryl.
Oh, and thank you. Have a great night, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.